Okie dokie. So in this morning's class, we did it a little bit differently today. I didn't tell you what we were going to be prepping for and what our peak pose was, and I left it up to you to guess. And you guys did guess right. So just to bring it back to our discussion we had the other day together, do we tell people what we're prepping for? And you don't always have to. Sometimes you can just go for it. So how was that this morning? It seems like a lot of you guessed it right in the beginning by the chat box. You can turn on your mics and chat. I don't want to do all the
talk. Started doing hamstrings and I really thought it was Urdhva Dhanurasana. And when you stretch the hamstrings, I thought one leg's going up, definitely.
And you guys starting to get to know me and how I like prepping for certain things here, because we all have our favorite ways of teaching.
I loved the hands-on block stretches and behind the back with the arms out, which I shouldn't have done, but I did. It was really good.
I just love bringing in props, especially because they aid in so much more of that shoulder stretching and shoulder flexion work, which feels great for me. I know it can feel quite intense.
Lovely.
Okay, so we played with not knowing what the prep pose was and kind of kept that as a running theme where I wasn't instructing you like your teachers in training. So we weren't talking about shoulder flexion, we weren't talking about hip flexion. We're trying to just kind of talk like we normally would in a vinyasa class. So just so we bring it up as discussion when we're teaching these classes just to your everyday people, obviously we don't use those words like I've been doing with you guys, right? Because I have no idea what you're talking about if you said bring your shoulders into shoulder flexion and then your leg up into hip flexion, then press down through your bottom foot into hip extension. It's irrelevant, right? Of course, we've spoken about that as we've gone along in all the classes, just because it's helpful when we're talking about prep pose sequencing and kind of bringing in those, just kind of breaking it down and discussing it as we go along. But today I wanted to give you experience more of like a normal class. Even then, I couldn't help myself. Once we got to lifting our hips up, we analyzed a little bit what was going on in our hips, right? Okay, definitely. So just for those that joined now, and we were just saying how the yoga class today, we didn't talk like we were teaching yoga teachers. That we kind of just moved and flowed, take your arm back, feel a good stretch, rather than describing all the hips and joints and muscles. And you guessed the yoga pose, rather than being told what you were working towards. So just different ways of doing it. You don't always have to say what you're prepping for. Just let them move. Okay. So I just wanted to bring that up as a little discussion before we started. Do you guys have any questions? I know you're going to discuss the hip stuff with Catherine, so we don't have to talk about too much about that. But if there's anything you want to comment on with stepping feet in or any experiences in the pose, feel free to jump in.
I must say, Laura, it was interesting. So I was taught, or maybe moaned at, for going up onto my tippy toes and wheel. Because now when I do wheel with flat feet, I feel it in my lumbar spine, like quite severely, and then in the shoulders. The moment I got onto my tippy toes, it's almost easy. And it was so funny because I was like, okay, well, let me try and pull this off like I've been told to do, keeping the feet flat. And I could not, it was the weirdest thing. I could not lift my other leg up. And the moment I pushed over onto my tippy toes, my other leg went up like it felt like nothing. Like, there we go, breeze.
That's awesome, Claire. So what's happening when Claire goes onto her onto the balls of her feet in wheel? Both feet down or one leg up in the air. What's it doing? Why does it feel better?
Is it giving a more of a lift? Because it's so funny that Claire says that. I can't do it without having my feet flat. So when we did come up onto the balls of the feet, I found that I don't know, I just felt very wonky, but I'm imagining it gives you more of a lift.
Absolutely. Ashton?
Hi, Laura. Yes, I imagine it also probably has something to do with Claire's particular anatomy. Perhaps that curve is just better for her natural spine alignment, or the flexibility in her lumbar spine is easier to access for her by spreading out the bend a little bit.
Absolutely. Anyone else feel that in full wheel?
I really find going up onto my tippy toes helps a lot. I just get higher.
So what is that doing to the arc of the full wheel when we go onto the toes?
It's increasing it.
It's kind of lifting the leg side, right?
Hmm.
So just as Ashton said, sometimes by lifting the feet actually helps to get a more even back bend, as opposed to, as Claire said, feeling it a little bit more into the lower back. It kind of gives you space. So it's a lovely experience in full. And I find when I teach that pose, a lot of the time, most people feel more comfortable on the toes. Of course, it feels a little less stable for toes because now you're balancing on the balls of the feet, but something worth exploring.
Lauren, I find, so I really battle with full wheel. I don't battle with the back bend side of things, but I battle with pushing up. So I use blocks against the wall to get up into the pose. Why do I battle so much? Is that shoulder flexion, or is that strength in my arms? Or is it just that I don't have the strength in that position?
It's a good question, Janine. It's a big question. Does anyone want to jump in? Eva?
I can comment.
Yes, Claire? Whoever's first.
Okay.
Let's go
So,
Eva, Claire, Tegan.
cool.
Eva?
Yes, Claire's already on it. Just let her continue.
Cool. Claire, go for it.
Okay, mine is a quickie. So I used to struggle with it as well, but I found using your breath. So I inhale, and then just before I push up, I exhale, and that helped me. And it's also focusing on getting the hips up first, which almost allow you to get into a better positioning with the arms and pushing up. But that was my experience. Eva, you go.
My experience is, if you use, Janine, are you using the blocks under your hands or under your feet?
Under my hands.
Yeah, so usually what I recognize is that if people are using blocks under their hands, it makes it a little bit easier on the shoulder and arm strength part. And if you use blocks under your legs, it shifts the weight more into your shoulders and your arms. So by using the blocks, you will transfer weight from your upper body to your lower body. So you're using your legs more. So it might be related to you not having the sufficient strength to push up, but there could also be like a restriction in your shoulders as well. I can't see that, but definitely if it makes it easier for you on blocks, then there might be the load involved.
Tegan, you also wanted to jump in?
I agree with Eva, and yeah, I think usually if you're struggling to push up, it seems to be, and if you don't have a problem with back bends, it seems to be that would be a strength story to build. So that's something you would want to do, is build more strength, and yeah, just focus on maybe, yeah, I think it's a strength thing maybe.
It's such a hard one because it's a different strength to a handstand, you know, a handstand hold. So yeah, I just wish I knew how to strengthen more for that particular position.
Can I throw in another idea? Sorry, guys, I'm on my phone, so I don't know where to do the hand raising thing. But another thing that we do at our studio is, which sometimes helps, Janine, is if you put a strap around the elbows. It almost, because the strap's there to support the elbows, you almost push slightly against the elbows, and it gets you into an easier positioning. It's worth playing with and seeing whether it does anything, because sometimes I actually wonder, and Laura, maybe you can chime in here, how much strength is it really with your arms? Isn't it more almost trying to feel the momentum of the movement when you're getting up and over?
Great questions. I'll let you guys talk it through. Firdaus, you going to add to that?
Yeah, I was kind of wanting to say a bit about what Claire said about, I don't know if it's that much strength or whether it's just about like understanding and movement. But then on the strength thing, when Janine said it's different to a handstand, I was wondering if this is more the tricep and the handstand is more in your shoulders, and what the difference of that strength distribution is.
Lauren, your hand was up too?
Hi, sorry, I came late. What pose are we talking about?
We're
Sorry.
talking about full wheel.
Okay, cool. So I also just a comment. So in when I teach it to beginners, which I find helps a lot, is I put their hands on my ankles, so it helps with the wrist, and then I actually help them, so it helps them feel it, so that when they do it themselves, because sometimes people push away instead of down. Does that make sense? So I find that helps them to kind of connect the dots.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have done it. Laura, I have done it like that, grabbing hold of somebody's ankles. It does help a little bit. I can't pinpoint what's going on.
Anya,
I would actually love to see a video.
Well, I'm not allowed to do it at the moment, unfortunately. I've got a little bit of a back issue going on. But as soon as I am allowed to, I will let you know.
And we'll talk loads about this in your shoulder module and stuff. So you'll go into this with big detail with Catherine. Anya, you have something to add?
Yeah. Sorry I missed your class this morning, but I'm definitely going to catch it up later. Janine, I wonder if there could also be a slight restriction in your shoulders. So not that it's when you're putting your arms back, if maybe you put your hands a bit wider, that might help a little bit more. Just kind of see if that helps.
Thank you.
Well, as something
all together.
Oh, I know, I was thinking that exactly.
You'll definitely go into a lot more detail about the shoulders, and especially with full wheel, because a lot of it depends on your shoulder flexion range of movement. So those with super flexy shoulders, you can see, like I watch Roxy when she pops up into these back bends, it just comes with such ease because there's no restriction. But we have to see, of course, we're just guessing now because we just guessing because we have to see you in the pose. And of course, it's a huge strength component as well, and different strength to handstand. Why?
Because in a handstand, you're going forward. In a back bend, it's flexion. So
both the shoulder flexion poses. Think about your starting position for handstand and your starting position for full wheel.
Well, you're going from bent to straight.
Exactly. So it's a whole nother component, right? So you would need to strengthen in that kind of way.
And it's
so
also,
we'll analyze that when your back feels a bit better, Janine, and when you have your shoulder module, you're going to talk loads about it, and also making space, as Anya said. So did you feel in today when we had our hands on blocks, we started with our hands wide like this in a V, for those that weren't there, with our hands on blocks, and you felt maybe that you had a lot of space for your chest to come down. And as soon as we bring our elbows in closer, less space. So then it's interesting to translate that into full wheel as well. What if we allowed ourselves more space? For example, do we have to keep our elbows in like this? Or can we let our elbows go out?
Laura, I was actually going to ask you that, because I'm like, okay, when your elbows are closer in, it's almost more stable and, I don't know, almost more strengthy for me, obviously. Maybe I mustn't talk about everyone, but the moment the arms go out, I almost feel like it's harder work, because I don't know, when you're stacking on top of the wrist, the elbow, and the shoulder, that makes it easy. When you're out sideways, I don't know, it feels harder.
So what does it sound like? Claire likes it with a strap. Claire likes her arms in. What kind of shoulders are we just assuming and guessing Claire has, where she finds it easier with her arms in?
quite good shoulder flexion, I think.
Yeah, she has a lot.
She's probably pretty good shoulder flexion. Yeah. And those that sometimes with less flexible, radical shoulder flexion can start with their hands a little bit wider. Just as we were talking about the knees in full wheel as well, we allowed the knees to open, we kept them straight, and we experienced different things in each of those, right? So, yeah, Eva, do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, it's also, we already talked about that in the hips, and it's more or less the same in the shoulder. It's a little bit less stable, that joint, but still the same components are important. So if the shoulder joint, it depends on how it is shaped as well. So so that will restrict you in your full flexion, and whether it's easier or more natural for you, because how your I think it's called the acromion. That's in the hip, isn't it? The one, no, it's acromion, yeah. Where you where that points to, that is natural that your arms goes in that direction as well. So sometimes it's more like closer in, and sometimes it's more pointing outwards. So that is the difference as well.
Firdaus?
I wanted to ask about the knee, what you were hoping to get at when you asked us to take our knees out wide, because, I mean, first of all, I found it pretty impossible to do that because I don't know why, but also, like, what was the aim of that?
So basically just not feeling like you have to force your knees to point forwards, but if they wanted to just, and not like major external rotation or anything, but just allowing them to just move in a way that maybe they wanted to move, if that was comfortable for you, and basically not forcing them straight, and just the different sensations you may have felt. Not saying it's a good thing, not saying it's a bad thing, but just exploring that a little bit more, which I know you're going to talk more about with Catherine. I think you guys have been told to kind of explore this a bit here. Yes. So just kind of touching on sensations there, Firdaus. Just observe it. See how it feels. How does it change your back bend? Did it change anything? How does it feel in your back? How does it feel? Does it make you lift high? Does it make you lift lower? Does it create space? Does it restrict space? Just exploring. Caro?
Yes, hi. I was just wondering how everyone felt about releasing the glutes in the position, like a little survey here, because for me it was very interesting, especially since we talked about that with Catherine as well. As soon as I was up in bridge or also full wheel pose and I would release the glute, it really felt like taking away a lot of stability. So I was just wondering if everyone had like a similar experience, or what your experience was with this.
Yeah, I'm with you, Caro. I didn't like it. I also felt like, you know, when you activate the glutes, you really push those hips up, so it's getting you higher up. The moment I let go of my butt, the glutes, my bum almost dropped slightly. I don't like it. I'm like, squeeze the bum.
So did everyone agree with Caro on that? Ashton, you got something to say?
Yes, Laura, I wanted to ask you, when you were getting us to experiment with different foot alignments, hip positionings, was that just a little teacher's dive, or would you go through all those variations when instructing, say, a beginner or intermediate class? Or are there specific versions which, in your experience, help people in general access the pose better?
Very good question. It was a little bit of a teacher's dive in there because I wanted you guys to explore it just with your overall themes you're in this week. I wouldn't normally cue relaxing bum or tensing bum to see if they felt anything different. I would just let them go up. I wouldn't necessarily cue knees open or encourage anything. I'll just let them move. So if they popped up into bridge or wheel and their knees went up, I'll just let them be, because if that works for them, it's okay. And I would explore going up into the balls of the feet though. In my experience teaching loads of people, finding this full wheel, it's such a big pose. There's so many components with shoulders, spines, legs. I find it helps a lot of people. So I would explore going up on the toes and just let them feel that. But I wouldn't have gone into all the other bum stuff. Good question.
Thank you.
Roxy.
Thank you so much for the class. First of all, it was one of my favorite sequences that you've taught so far. So thank you so much. And just to add on to what Ashton is saying, it's such a fine line because obviously when we look at any posture, we have a shape, right, that we have in mind, and like especially the students, you know, like there's so many people doing wheel and it must look this way, or handstand or camel, or like any kind of posture in yoga. And even us as teachers, it's hard because you know the outcome or like the end goal, and we cue in general, you know, like keeping your hips square or maybe your shoulders hip or hands shoulder distant apart to have that shape. But it's just a fine line because obviously we want people to explore how it feels good for them. So maybe some people, their bridge will look like their knees are way wider or their arms are way shorter or whatever. But I think people also like, Laura, and that's what I wanted to ask you, is like, how do you, when you teach with your cueing, like kind of cue towards the image that people are looking like to work towards too? So like, you know, your wheel, you kind of want to keep your hands under your shoulders and your knees hip distant apart. You have this beautiful shape, but obviously not saying all this cueing that Catherine is like, you know, like it's like it's no right or wrong, but yeah, it's just tricky because people like also making a beautiful shape in all these postures.
Yeah, really good question, because we want to allow them to explore and find their own shape, but yet guide them into the, you know, what we're looking for. And I think it comes into also how you correct people, is how you look at a student in a pose and go, listen, they've got shoulder restriction. I'm not going to tell them to keep their elbows in because I know it's not going to help. So it's also assessing where they're at through your prep poses, which is really helpful as you go through the sequence. You've got shoulder flexion poses to kind of check who's going to find this easy, who's going to feel restricted. And even along the way, you can kind of assess the bodies you're teaching, right? And then you can also see, you know, if someone has the ability to bring their knees in and be a little bit straighter, then you can guide that. But if you can assess that someone's, you know, maybe just can't, that they need a little bit of space, then that's also fine to allow that. So I think it varies from person to person, and we just have to be mindful in our corrections we give, that the same rules don't apply for everyone. If someone can, go for it. If someone can't, understand what's happening in their body, that we're not trying to force their elbows in and it's actually just is not going to help them to even push up into wheel. Whereas if we allow them a bit of space, wow, they get up. And then we kind of have to gauge what's more important, right? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Okay, thank you.
Cara?
Yeah, I have a question. Some yoga teachers like to teach full wheel to beginners by pressing into your hands and then first place the crown of your head on the ground. And I'm just interested in your take, because I find either you have the strength to fully press up, but I wouldn't really cue for someone to put the crown of the head, because I think it can, if you're then relying on your head to kind of hold you in the position, it will be like a lot of pressure on the neck. But what's your idea about this?
Anyone want to jump in? Anyone heard that cue before? Hands up, who was first? Vidit, do you want to go for it?
Funny you say that, because that's the only way I can get up. It's like this, it's sort of my base, and from there then I feel like I can push up. Yeah,
I think, and I don't think it's a bad thing, but then why do you feel like it helps?
Gosh, I'd actually have to go and do it again to just see. I don't know, it feels like I almost stabilize myself first, and then from there I can work into my arms without just, maybe I don't have the strength in my arms quite yet. And yeah, I know Firdous was also asking earlier about being really knackered, and I mean, I felt it hectically in my traps today. I was doing loads of long dogs and short dogs for Catherine last night because I found the short dogs. So today, honestly, if I didn't even use my head, I don't think I would have even gone up.
Anyone else? Tegan, do you want to jump in? And then Eva, you also had your hand up.
Yeah, so I've been given that cue before. I don't personally enjoy it. I find it quite uncomfortable on my neck. That's just a personal thing, but I do know it helps a lot of people, so I do see how it's helpful. But yeah, it's definitely not something I cue.
So why, Eva, do you want to jump in and then we'll talk a bit more?
For me, it's the same as for Vidette. I need to come up to the crown of my head, because then I'm not that open in my shoulders, and then I can position my hands a little bit closer to the sides of my head, which I can't when I do it in just one turn. So that's a little bit of stopping and finding the right position for my hands. While I have some weight on my head, that's true, but I have a lot of weight in this position on my legs as well, because I am not able to I can't bend that much in the supine position. So when I come up, I have most of my weight on my legs. So to my head, and then I bring my arms in the right position, which shifts the weight more towards my head then, but that's when I press up. So for me, it's not uncomfortable. And also, I think it depends on the length of your arms. Sometimes it's really hard. You have to push a lot before you can sweep your head through. If you're not able to do that because you've got short arms, you probably just are stuck on the crown of your head anyway.
Firdaus, you want to jump in?
You know what I've seen when people come up onto the crown of the head? It might not be these guys, but people come up and then they kind of, I don't know how to do it like this, but they sort of pushing, and they like push one and then push the other one, and then the head kind of gets tangled up like this. And I always think like, oh my goodness, they're going to, do something to their neck, because they don't come up like this smoothly. There's like some sort of wriggle that happens, and that's what freaks me out. That's why I like what Caro's saying, that maybe, I don't know if it's pressure, but I get scared to cue that, because I'm like, what are they doing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I worry about hurting necks. I know it's, again, coming from my perspective, I've got a bit of a bangy neck, and the prospect of putting too much pressure on my neck and my head just freaks me. Like, no.
Yeah, so I agree. You don't want to put too much weight on your head in that position. Absolutely. First of all, you need to have the strength to hopefully push up, right? So we just taking that kind of midway position to adjust hands. For what type of shoulders would maybe start differently and need to adjust in order to get into the pose?
People with not great shoulder flexion abilities.
So remember how we were talking about, and you're going to go into this in more detail. So I'm gonna switch the conversation soon, because I know Catherine's going to love talking to you guys about this. But if you start wider, what is that helping with?
Shoulder flexion.
Absolutely, shoulder flexion. So, but now your hands are really wide. So now I want to push up. So that's going to make it tough, right? Mm. So to get your hands there, you might need to take a little bit of space. And then a pause lightly on the top of the head. I agree. We don't want too much weight on the neck. We don't want scrunching. You want to be strong enough to push up, hopefully, from this point, that you're still using your hands. But it gives you a chance to adjust your hand position and then push up. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I do agree we don't want to scrunch the neck, but sometimes it's the only way someone can get up. And it's not a bad thing. But you'll explore that more. It's an interesting one. Keep that in mind for later on when we go through shoulders, which is complicated and exciting and amazing. Good questions. Okie dokes. So if there's anything else you want to talk about with full wheel, otherwise you'll come back to it later on with spine and shoulders. We had some exploration of what was happening in the hips, which you'll go through a little bit more with Catherine as well, breaking down the anatomy. Anything else you'd like to add before we talk about our workshops? Cool. Happy. Nice. And it's so nice to share each other's experiences in the pose, because that's where we learn here. Because my full wheel is like almost my counter pose. I love full wheel. I could do full wheel instead of Shavasana. but it's just because my shoulders like going there, right? Where I'm sure a lot of you feel differently about full wheel. So it's good to share so we can just hear from each other that we don't all have the same experiences. Not all your instructions are going to be the same because everybody's so different. And full wheel is one of those poses where there's a lot of components. So exciting one to talk about later on as well. Okay, so let's talk about your beginners workshop. Have you guys had a chance to watch the video?
Yeah.
Started,
cool. So you're going to be putting together your own 6-week beginners program. Basically, this is for you, right? It's for you to take the time, watch the video, look at all the different components, and it's about structuring something for yourself. It's not for me, it's for you. Okay, so you can kind of take what you want from it, bring in stuff you want to do, themes that you feel are important. Take it further, keep it similar. It's for you at the end of the day.
Okay, cool. I was going to ask because I wondered whether, I mean, do you ever go into a little bit of the background in yoga, why people might be choosing to come to class? I noticed you didn't bring in breathing from day one. I mean, are those things that I mean, your preference is not to, but anybody else, you go wild if you want to bring in, you know, you want to have your first intro as a lecture on, okay, these are the type of things we look at or consider or think about. Do you bring in the energetic body? Do you add in these, or do you focus very much on the asana and whatnot?
It's a good question, Janine. What do you guys think? Claire, sorry. Janine, you have your hand up. Do you want to add to that?
No, she can carry on. I have another question, so that's fine.
Cara?
I'm happy.
Regarding breathing, like I started to work on my program already, and I'm going to bring breath in. Like not super advanced, but I'm going to introduce Nadi Shodhana and Kapalabhati because I think those are the most common ones in vinyasa classes. Like if you go to vinyasa classes that incorporate the breath, it's a fairly common thing, at least here in Berlin, Germany. And I also, but not like all at once. I think the first class in the beginning, just to arrive, I do like equal breathing, 4 in, 4 out. And then at class 2 or 3, we do a bit of Nadi Shodhana, and I like to do this kind of incorporating the arms. So it's at the same time also a little warm up for the shoulders. And then Kapalabhati will be towards the end and maybe talking about Ujjayi towards the end. But I do incorporate it also like in cat-cow, just moving with the breath only in cat-cow, or maybe Uttanasana, Ardha Uttanasana, so that you get used to the idea that the breath is going to play a role, but I will not focus on the breath throughout the whole class in the beginning, if that makes sense.
Firdaus, you want to add to that?
No, not really. I just wasn't sure if I heard correctly. Did you say 6 week?
Yes, it's up to you. 6 week is just a template you can use. It seems to work quite well, but it's completely up to you. Yeah, Claire, I think it's nice to bring in some awareness of breath and a little bit of a background, but also just be aware of the people that you're teaching. They're beginners, they're coming to learn how to stretch, how to breathe, a few poses. So just being mindful of what we introduce in the first session. And sometimes breath can be quite advanced. So I think also being mindful to keep it quite simple. Be aware of the people that you're teaching. So in our, when you went through the videos, one of the questions was, what are the types of people you're going to be teaching? What issues are you going to face? Tegan?
Are you asking?
I'm asking now. Tegan, do you want to jump in?
No, I was wanting to ask a question on the assignment. Sorry.
Okay, cool. Let's stick with this theme, and then please just remind me to come back to you for questions. Leave your hand up. Roxy?
Also a question, I don't know where to find the video.
Okay. I'll
Okay.
look for you now. I don't have it up on the website. It should be under the first bit of the teaching. So you had the anatomy stuff, and then you had another one just in the teaching section, right? The first ones we were going through with the sequencing, pose analysis. It should be in that section of the website.
And then, Laura, I can answer your question with what the beginners are going to struggle with. Was the lack of body awareness, your posture, lack shoulder stability, restricted hamstrings, tight quads, tired quickly. Obviously, they don't know much about anything really when they're coming to yoga. Most people come to yoga thinking exercise and let me get all zen and peaceful. But yeah, that's what the slide said.
So that's kind of what I want you to think about when introducing breath work. Are you going to have them sitting first thing? Are they going to be comfortable?
When I was talking about breath work, I hadn't jumped to pranayama yet. I was thinking more about, okay, as you come forward and you stand, you breathe in, you breathe out. Why do we breathe? Why are we bringing in just normal breathing or awareness of breath as we're moving through the postures? I hadn't even jumped to pranayama yet.
Absolutely. So I think it's just keep it simple. Keep it simple and accessible for them, that they don't feel
overwhelmed.
It's easy and not overwhelmed. There's going to be a lot going on. If you think of someone who's never done yoga, never really moved or exercised, think about someone like that when we bring in these things. But I think it is important to bring in breath work. Just keep it simple. And it's absolutely, as the course progresses, bring in pranayama, especially if it's something that is taught a lot and you want to bring it in. But it's hard. Pranayama is a big one. Hard for a lot of people. It's a whole nother discussion, right?
Yeah.
All right. Anya, do you have something to add to the beginners, or do you have a question on the assignment?
No, it's just to add about the beginners. Yeah, I think if you're doing the pranayama, like you say, it's a different aspect. I think if you're doing the postures at first, people are so busy concentrating on where to put their hands and where to put their feet, and actually they can't really concentrate on breathing as well. It comes naturally, so let them just breathe. You do some of the more advanced breath work, that can be a different section taught separately to the asanas, so that they can kind of learn the basics of that as well, but not having to worry about where to put their feet and everything like that at the same time.
Very good point. Eva, do you have something to add to that?
Yes, I totally agree with that, because you can teach it not together with the poses, because it's too complicated. They have to think about too many other things then. But on the other hand, we try to teach beginners those things they struggle with most, the things that they don't know yet. And if you think about what we are doing our whole day and what we are not doing right most of the time, it's our breath. So we breathe about 23,000 times a day. And most of us don't breathe in the way that is really beneficial for our nervous system and for our health. So I would also always try to incorporate a little bit of breath work with beginners, especially with beginners, because it's probably the most basic movement that our body does. So it's the base of everything. And so I would always divide a workshop for beginners into different sections and also spend some time on the breath. And I do that in, like, once they have the simple basic poses, and they can do a simple basic sun salutation, even if it's just a half salutation, and they can move with the breath or learn to move with the breath there, where they don't have to focus on alignment or anything else. But it teaches them to sync their breath with the movement, which is one of the basic themes in yoga anyway. And then you can work with lengthening the exhale maybe, which can help them in so many situations in their lives nowadays, which is very stressful, to really to take the yoga off the mat, to really use what they learn in yoga for their everyday life as the same way as they do with the movements. So so I would definitely integrate it.
I agree with that, Eva. That was awesome. Thank you.
Fredette?
Sorry. Yeah, I think that's another thing. I know I find I mostly teach beginners, and I find one of the biggest things, even with bringing in breath, it is a very important part. But I find a lot of people cannot sit still at all. That's the hardest thing for them, I think, out of everything. I mean, you see it in Shavasana, so even just starting off, it's like fidgeting and looking around. So just to actually even just settle in is probably the hardest part, yeah, in the beginning.
So really important thing to think about with our beginners workshop, right?
Yeah.
All right. So now we
But I suppose it would.
Please, Claire.
Sorry, Laura.
Go for it.
I suppose it would also be, I mean, like you said, this is for us. What is it that we're wanting, and what kind of students are we wanting to attract? Because I know we've said, think about what students are coming, but again, you're thinking about the kind of students that you work with in particular, and maybe even the kinds that you'd want to work with. So if you're on a more maybe spiritual focused, breath focused, and that's tending to be, when they integrate into your normal classes, that tends to be what your focus is, then that would tend to focus more on what your intro would be, wouldn't it? I mean, you're really trying to give them an intro to who you are as a teacher and the kind of style or the way you teach, right?
I guess it depends on your intentions here.
Okay, cool.
Could I say something, Laura?
Yes, go for it, Tegan.
So I agree with everyone, and I think breath awareness is amazing. One of the things I really like to do, just for anyone and myself included, is before I start my practice completely, I just come to the mat and I just start with deep breaths, and I think that alone is transformative for me. So I know that must be transformative for beginners, for anyone. And you can come to the mat in child's pose, you can come to the mat lying on your back, whatever accessible pose. So that's a really nice way, I think, to introduce and get people comfortable with that stillness. And then, sorry, I just want to ask one question on the 6-week beginner program. Is, for the 6-week plan, are we doing 1 or 2 classes a week, or is it like 1 class a week for 6 weeks? How does that work?
So that's completely up to you, Tegan, and how you would like to run something. It depends how much you want to bring in, how you're going to stagger your themes. So I'm going to leave that completely up to you and how you'd like to do it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And I agree with the breath work. Make it accessible. It's a lot already.
And then, Laura, when we're doing these doodads for you, are you wanting us to go into super detail? Are you wanting sort of lists of what we feel we would cover? How detailed or how much information are you wanting us to put into this?
So basically, first of all, it's for you. So it's up to you how much you want to do. If it's to get you to spend the time to do this while you've got this all going on in your mind, so that you can take this hopefully and run a beginner's workshop after this. So go for it as much as you want. I'm looking pretty much for an overall summary of the topics you're going to discuss, and just have a look-see through it. I don't need masses of detail, but if it's for you at the end of the day and you want to go for it, it's for you.
Okay, cool.
Who is next? Janine, you've had your hand up for a while. Let's come to you, and then Firdaus, and then Roxy.
Thanks, Laura. I actually was busy putting a beginner's program together already. So it was quite exciting when I saw that. And I absolutely love the way your plan is. I mean, I don't think I would change anything. I think it's amazing. So how do you want us to go about adding to that?
Well, just maybe give it a little bit of
detail.
Yeah, go into a little bit more detail. Maybe you want to add, maybe you want to take away. That's just an example, kind of how I would do it, just focusing basic on poses, discussing issues we would have, and then integrating that into the program that we can, take the issues that we know are going to be hard for beginners and put it in somewhere that we can discuss that. So go for it, Janine. It might be quite similar. That's totally cool.
I loved it. It's absolutely divine. It's like just what I was looking for.
It's such a helpful tool. These beginners workshops work so well for you to teach and also to bring people in. It works brilliantly. People love them as well. You often get a good attendance too.
Yeah, I did one at the beginning of the year. It was a lot less detailed. And yeah, they loved it and they're all coming back. So it's great.
People want to just stretch, breathe, and move a little bit, right?
And they're intimidated.
Yeah, not make it scary. Just let them have fun and let them move and feel good at the end of the day that they've breathed and stretched and, you know, for dose.
I just wanted to ask if you wanted us to kind of define the audience that we were teaching it to, because, like, for example, one of the programs I run is at the refugee center, so that's obviously a completely different, they're still beginners, but they're also refugees. That's a different audience to, I don't know, beginners who are middle-class suburban people. So do you want a defined audience or not?
It's completely up to you for dose, and I think that sounds amazing. And if that's relevant for you and it's going to be useful for you to spend your time on that and then run it, I think that would be amazing. Roxy?
I don't know if you mentioned in the video, but in which format would you like us to hand in this, like written or?
Yep, just a written summary. So if you're doing a 6-week, once a week, you're going to say, my first session, I'm going to focus on these poses and these aspects and bringing in these themes with awareness on this. And then second week, I'm going to do this. So just a little bit of a summary for me to look through. Yeah, so it's completely up to you how far in detail you want to bring in. Sometimes people bring in different themes around, okay, for our first day, it's going to be about rooting and grounding. And they kind of work up almost like a tree with a different kind of theme and a different kind of flow. And you can make it quite creative.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Eva, is your hand up?
Talking about themes, I just wonder, it's a question I asked myself many times before now. I love the peak pose sequencing and I teach like that a lot as well, but I wonder, do you also teach not towards the peak pose, but to like different body parts, or so that you do that as well? It's just that in this 300-hour program, we are doing the peak pose sequencing, which doesn't mean that you don't do like class focused on whatever, hips or shoulders, or just in general, or just in general a strengthening class or whatever.
Yeah, so we're here to teach you about peak pose sequencing. So we're doing a lot of focus work on that, and that's what I'm teaching you guys at the moment. But it doesn't say you want to bring in a strength class and you're just going to teach strength for an hour, or you're going to be a focus around flexibility. It doesn't always need to be a peak pose. Maybe you're going to focus in a little bit more. And I think that's awesome. Themes are great. Do you guys have any more questions about your beginners workshop? Janine, is your hand up?
It is. It's quite a short space of time. I think I only discovered this video by accident, looking at the timetable 2 days ago. Can we maybe extend to handing it in over the weekend, or do you want it definitely on Thursday? I don't know how everybody else feels.
I don't mind, as long as you get it to me, because we have lots of time together. So if you need to take a little bit extra time, just let me know, pop me a message. But hopefully by this week would be great, because you've got a couple more with me, and maybe you just don't want to fall behind too much.
Yeah, because I know there's the private one that we have to do. Well, that I haven't watched that video. It actually wasn't working. I'm not sure if it's working now. Every time I clicked on it, it would say it's unavailable. So I'm not sure if it is working. I haven't looked again. Will that be the same sort of idea as what we're doing now?
Yes, exactly. So you'll see each one has a different kind of theme. So privates, you'll be focusing a little bit more around a little bit of an assessment. And then you will also do an arm balance workshop for me as well.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I'm sure I can get it done by Thursday. I've just got My brain is like,
if you need time, just send me a message. We've got time. I mean, a lot of us are still chatting about our sequences, and we've got time to do that. So that's all good.
thank you, Laura.
Pleasure. Anything else, Cara?
Yeah, since you mentioned the sequences, the last time we were talking about the peak pose sequencing, Catherine, I'm not sure whether she said it or whether she wrote it in the group, she said that there will be more sequencing work that you will have us do. So is there something additionally coming up that's not in the schedule right now?
Not at this stage. We'll let you know if there's anything else to do with sequences.
Okay.
But this, for now, we're going to focus on our workshops.
Cool.
And I'm in touch with all of you privately about sequences. So we're talking back and forth. Ashton.
Yes, hi Laura. I wanted to ask, you've given us fantastic feedback on our sequences thus far. Is it all right if we send you different versions with those slight alterations incorporated for further feedback? I just don't want to swamp you with additional work when you're reviewing so much already.
Absolutely, Ashton. So some of you have already been sending stuff and redoing it. Some of you wanted to start from the beginning again and go for it again. Now that you have a little bit more understanding. So yes, please. You will probably get more emails from me later this week. It has been a lot and we're doing the 200 hours. So I will be messaging you if I haven't already. And if I've sent you feedback, you're welcome to just send a little revised version. That would be
awesome.
good.
Thank you so much.
All right. Anything else, guys?
Laura, just following, I now can't remember who mentioned it, with the peak pose sequencing and whatnot, you personally, I mean, do you find that you almost follow a bit of a routine? So if you're teaching in a week, you might do one, or maybe in a month, I don't know how you plan it, you know, you do 1 or 2 peak pose sequences throughout that period, and then you throw in, I don't know, conditioning class, a flexibility class, or different kinds of ideas? Or do you have a tendency to just keep on doing your peak poses, and then do you spend time like changing the way you had done a particular sequence before, or do you repeat that same sequence whenever you do that peak pose? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, so for me, it always depends on who I'm teaching. So I might teach you guys completely different to how I would teach beginners, and then the class may look completely different, bringing in different components potentially. And it depends on who I'm teaching. If I feel that we need to do more arm strength, then we'll bring in more arm strength themes throughout the month. Or sometimes I'll take, like, over this month we're going to focus on arm balances, and every week we're going to work through a different arm balance. So I guess it depends who you're teaching and changing it up. I think I don't teach the same pose twice, the same sequence twice ever. It always seems to be changing.
Cool.
Even if it's the same, similar poses, there's always different actions and skill works and themes and shapes that I want to kind of get across to whoever I'm teaching.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Claire. Anything else to do with your workshops?
All good.
All good. Lovely seeing you all. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you again on Thursday.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Bye.
Have a lovely day.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.